for a second and talk about how old you are in dog years. So I'm about 6.5. If you start to kind of turn it around and look at it from that perspective, it's kind of interesting. The most interesting thing from a dog bite perspective about dog socialization and dog development is that dogs develop a lot faster than we do. In the first year of their life, they become 14 or 15 years old. Then you start adding 7, like you've heard in the past. So newborns are just like our newborns. They're pretty much helpless. They're blind for just a couple of days. They need their mom. But very, very quickly, they grow up. And so at 5 weeks, we've already got 1-year-old kids. They're still not ready to leave their mom. But at this point, it's very important that they stay together. They bite each other, and they learn what we call bite inhibition, which they teach each other what's safe and what's not. So part of their play is to bite each other and sort of test each other out, and that's why you hear them going, and telling each other that was too hard, that was, and their mom tells them as well, that was too hard. So this is why it's really important not to take a dog away from a litter before they're 8 weeks old. It's like they need to learn these skills for biting, and sometimes they're very, very inappropriately developed when you bring a dog home too early. So this is a picture from my breeder at 5 weeks. My puppy was already getting onto strange surfaces. They got on one of those sort of bouncy sort of hammocky chairs, which I really liked. And I really, really liked the fact that she sent me this picture, which means that the child was holding her. So early exposure to children is huge. Hearing their voices, listening to their sounds, actually having the child handle them so they learn to tolerate it. At 8 weeks, when you bring your puppy home, they're just like a 2-year-old, right? They're potty training, they start to learn what no means, everything goes in the mouth, very, very similar. Crate training is crucial for dog bite prevention. It's not only the best house-breaking tool there is, but it's definitely crucial for dog bite prevention because the dog needs a space to go. A lot of people have a party. This happens all the time where we see, we were over at Uncle so-and-so's party, and all the kids were bugging the dog, and then all of a sudden, he bit him. So the dog needs a place to go. A lot of dogs, if they've been socialized into their crate since they were young, will choose to go to their crate when the stimulus gets overdone. And maybe even if Floyd had had a crate to go to that morning, and Liam knew the rules, but the crate's off limits, he might still be here. So the crate is a very, very important tool to teach the dog that they have a safe place to go. So I also teach my dogs early on to accept human touch. A lot of times dogs bite because they just are very uncomfortable with people in their space. And if this happens early on where you kind of roll them on their back and touch their paws and look in their ears, all of that anxiety around being touched is done. Veterinarians and groomers and everyone that has to handle your dog when you're not around really appreciates early human touch. So at 4 months you've got a kindergartner, right? A lot of people think that you need to wait until you take your dog to kindergarten, puppy kindergarten or puppy classes until they're 4 months. That's like taking a 5-year-old to kindergarten and saying, here, this is what another kid looks like, have fun. You can't, imagine doing that, so we shouldn't do it with puppies either. We need to start early. All kinds of people, all kinds of dogs, as long as everyone's vaccinated, just like people. We don't sequester them into the house, right? So at 9 months, you've got an 11-year-old. They start to get a little defiant, a little silly. They might run in the opposite direction when you call them, kind of typical of an adolescent. At 1-year-old, they start to get a lot more physically able, and this is where I really encourage confidence as far as like climbing onto things. Agility courses are great because it really gives them confidence in their environment. Standing up on a table or jumping up onto surfaces. They're just like a 14-year-old boy as far as their athleticism. At 2 years, you finally got a mature adult dog. So in that 2 years, how important is it to get them, socialized to all those things we talked about? So you can see what a benefit that would be to get them out into the world. So this is a 2-year-old dog that's about ready to graduate from K9 to K, and he knows about 70 commands here, and he's obviously been very well socialized. And that's when you see service dogs and blind dogs out and about now, you kind of know the secret. That's why they're so calm in public, is because they've had all those early experiences. I had a friend over the other day with her toddler. I don't have kids. And my 10-year-old dog, Shima, was under the table on her bed, and the little toddler kind of started getting close to her bed. And I was just kind of watching because I lectured on this, and she crawled up there, and Shima didn't growl, but she gave me kind of a, there's just like a little hum that's different from her normal sort of happy purr. And I said, oh, that's it, Shima isn't comfortable with her, so we separated right away, and it was a huge lesson for me. Shima is like a 66-year-old person or a 70-year-old person. Whatever you wouldn't let a kid do to grandma, don't let the kids do it to the dog. I mean, dogs are old, older dogs, especially ones that haven't grown up with kids, they would just rather not be